See?
It's not that difficult.
Hey, sometimes the struggle is real. This is Friday, May 29th, third period, the last time that we'll be together. My 8th graders who are in here, remember, if you become a distraction, I boot you. If you were not one of my kids also, if you're in here, show the respect. But I don't think it's going to be an issue because it hasn't been yet. With my 7th graders, I don't think it'll be a major issue with you guys because it's also your last time that you'll be in here.
Yeah.
To start off with, before I forget, I have my note thing I used yesterday, which has a little inspirational quotes that I used to get me through it, and it goes over the overall outline. And I had kids ask me, because they wanted to take it, I'm going to send that out on Remind 101 as an attachment, so if you follow me on Remind and you want a copy of that, because I don't know why, but some people did, I'm going to send that out today after school or whenever I get a chance to think about it. If you don't want it, then just ignore it and delete it. If you don't follow me on Remind, then you might be out of luck, because that's pretty much the only way to get a hold of it. Other than that, for today, with the last time we get a chance to talk, you sort of get a choice of stories. And you get to choose which way you want to go with it. And I'm happy either way because it'll change from class period to class period what you guys want to do with it. I have one that I can do because I had a lot of stuff to talk about yesterday and I didn't get through all the stuff yesterday. And I can do that one, but that is going to be a much deeper feels emotion one. Or I can do a much more uplifting. We get to laugh at me and we get to hear the story about me getting into my first fight. And me getting into a fight when I was in junior high because I was on the football team and stuff like that. So they're both entertaining in their own ways, if you will. So I figured I would offer those up to you guys and then let you guys pick which direction you want to go with it from there. 8th graders, you don't get to vote. That's the drawback to you being 8th graders. You just get to spectate with whatever they want to go with. But this is their ride, so they get the chance to choose. So if you're wanting me to do the one that is all feels and stuff like that, that continues yesterday's, let me know, put your hand in the air now. If you want if you want the more uplifting one where you get to laugh at me, is still the part where I get to talk. Thank you. If you want to do the other story of my first fight, then we can do that one. And then a number of you didn't vote, that's fine. Alright, so we'll get to the story of my first fight, which makes things much, much easier on me. Because this one, no emotions required, because I was happy with this one. I was a skinny, dorky kid, as we talked about before. Now I'm just a skinny, dorky adult. But when I told you before, in 7th and 8th grade, I wanted desperately to be popular. Oh, I apologize for my voice. If you didn't see my Instagram post last night, I took my daughters to their first concert. Not Lana Del Rey, because my daughters are 8 and 10. We went to Weird Al Yankovic, which is, if you've never seen this thing called YouTube, you should go on there and type in Weird Al, because he's awesome. He's like, hashtag nerd cred. He's just the original nerd artist. And my daughters are my kids, so they're very nerdy, and I'm proud of their nerdiness. So we got to hang out and do that, but there was lots of screaming and clapping, and so my voice kind of died last night. But the sacrifices you make for the kids you love. But back to me and me having issues. I wanted to be popular. And so I did not play sports when I was a kid at all. The most aggressive sport I played was page turning when I read my books, and that was about it. And then in 7th grade, I decided I wanted to be popular, and I started doing what I could, and I realized that popular kids played sports. So I decided I was going to play a sport. And so beginning of my 8th grade year, I decided I was going to play football. The trouble is, I'd never played football. I never watched football. I barely understood what a football was. And so I went ahead and went out for it. But at Noblesville, when I was there, we didn't have enough kids to have cuts. So if you went out for the team, you made the team, which was both good and bad. So I made the team as an 8th grader. And the first time going out there, having no idea what I could do. And that was my 7th grade picture from yesterday, and that was my 8th grade picture. And I had to wear a tie because for our picture day was during, was not before school started. It was during the school year, and you had to wear a tie on picture day, and because you're on the football team, and so that was me wearing my tie. And then if you get a chance, back on the wall is a picture of me on the football team, And then the few of you who have gone to my website, and there's the trivia game about me, if you do the trivia game, there is a picture of me on the football team, which is the close-up in the football pose, where I'm down there in the three-point stance doing the growl, and like that, and it is wholly embarrassing. So that's why I put it on my website, that you have to work to get to it. So going out for the football team. Apparently, I was not good at it whatsoever, because I talked to the coach, and he asked me what I could do, and he said, "Can you catch?" And I go, "I don't know." And so he had me run a route, which I did not know what I was doing, so I just ran and turned, and he threw the ball at me, and it bounced off of me. And he goes, "You cannot catch." He goes, "Can you run?" I go, "I don't know." So I tried running, and I could not run very well. I could run, but not fast, and not aggressively. He goes, "Son, you can't run." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Can you tackle?" I'm like, "I don't know, let's try." And so he had me go and jump on another kid, and I bounced off of him. And so I'm like, "Here, son, you can't tackle." I'm like, "Nope." And so coach had a tough time figuring out where to place me. He started me off as a tight end, and I have no idea why, because I couldn't catch and I couldn't block, which are the two things tight ends do. You're either a catching tight end or a blocking tight end. And I think I just stood out there and watched people run by me and then ducked when they threw the ball. It was really, really bad, which I think is what angered some of the other kids on the team, because there was two kids who decided to take it out on me and become bullies. And I'm going to show you their pictures because I have them on the PowerPoint. I forgot to set it up. Hang on a second. Awkwardly crawling on the desk. I would walk behind my desk, but oddly I couldn't get back. Yeah. There we go. So I took pictures from my yearbook. Darren Thompson and Rob Bennett. It was Rob who was the kid that took a dislike to me being on his football team. He'd never really paid attention to me before, but once I was on his team, he did not like me being on his team. Even though I really didn't play at all. I was like on the D team, and we only had two teams. So it wasn't like it was a big worry. But Rob took it upon himself to torment me as much as he could. And what he would do is we would do tackle drills, where you would have to line up, and you would have to get into the three-point stance, and the coach would blow the whistle, and then you would have to leap at the other person and hit them to try to knock them backwards. And I was horrible at that. But I was aggressive, and so I got better. And it got to the point where Rob would manipulate the line, where he was always across from me. So whenever we would line up, Rob would go and move whatever kid was across from me, and then Rob would make sure that he was right across from me, and he would run at me and hit me as hard as he could and knock me backwards, and then stand above me and laugh, and then get back in line, which really ticked me off. But it also motivated me. And so I got better at hitting, and I got better at tackling, until eventually Rob couldn't knock me down. And then Rob would hit me, and I wouldn't fall down. I was able to actually hit him back. Not enough to knock him down, because Rob was a decent player. But enough where he couldn't knock me to the ground anymore, which really ticked him off. So Rob decided to up the game, and Rob got his friend Darren. And then Darren would come over and line up next to Rob, so that Darren was facing the kid next to me. So it was me, random kid, Rob, and then Darren. And then when the coach blew the whistle, Darren, instead of hitting this kid, would turn and hit me also. So Rob and Darren would both hit me and then knock me down, and the kid standing next to me would be like, "I don't know what's going on." And that finally started knocking me down again. I was like, that's just not fair. And that's little things like that. Whenever we were in the locker room, he would make fun of me, take my stuff, throw it, things like that. The things that bullies do when they just feel like being bullies and mean. And I remember I didn't play much at all because I shouldn't have played because I was horrible. But I did get to play on kickoff return. Kickoff. I couldn't even do kickoff return because that involved blocking. I could do kickoff because that was tackling. And when they would kick off the ball, I would be one of the 11 guys out there, and my goal was to run and tackle the person with the ball. And I did decently at that once I got all right at it. And that's pretty much the only position I played. I did not go in for anything else. It was just kickoff. And I was happy with that. I got to be on the team. I got to run around with them. I got better at football, figured out what I was doing. And I remember we played our final game at the high school, which I was all excited about, getting to play at the high school. And so we went out there for the high school game at Noblesville, and I remember I got to be in there at the very end, and it was, they had scored, and it was extra point after they had scored. And I got to be on the team because you don't really do much after the team scores. You just try to run up there and try to block it. And I got to be on the team that tried to block it. And I remember, because I was all tall and gangly, it was the only thing that I had going for me. When the other team went to kick it, I was actually able to be tall enough that I could jump up, and I actually got my hands up in front of the ball and was able to tip it. I don't know if I blocked it from going up and getting the point, or if I was just able to hit it. But I know it was a pretty darn exciting moment in my life as far as football went, because up to that point I'd been a complete failure. That was the one time that I felt I was able to do something. And I remember running off the field, and I was like, I finally did it. I finally was able to do something and contribute to the team and be a person and all that. And running off the team, I heard the coach saying, like, who was that? Who was that just blocked that ball? And as I was getting ready to say, that was me. Rob ran right in front of me. And he goes, that was me, coach. And he ran up and took credit for it. And I was astounded. And it didn't matter what I said by that point, because Rob had already taken credit. If I was like, hey, no, I did that, then it wouldn't have mattered. And I remember it just hurt. And I was like, that was just a mean thing for him to do. He thought it was hilarious and mean. So I got fed up dealing with him and his friend Darren and the issues that they gave me. But I stuck through it because it's what you do. And I wasn't going to quit because it wasn't who I was. And we got to the last day of football. We had to turn in all of the equipment. And I remember I was turning in equipment as we went through and did everything. You had to turn in the pads, and we were in the locker room. And I turned in my helmet, I turned in my pads, and I was walking back. And then Bennett, actually no, it wasn't Bennett, it was Darren that did it. Darren Thompson was walking the other way as I had dropped off my stuff, and he'd gotten up for something, and he came by me. And he did the shoulder smack. When you walk by someone, you just go, bam, and you hit him with your shoulder. And he hit me right in my shoulder and spun me around. And I've never snapped in my life, except for this one moment that I remember snapping. And it was that red haze thing that you hear people talk about when they have that anger wash over them. I'd never experienced it except in this moment. And the whole season of him giving me crap, but it fed up, and I snapped. And I remember that moment after he hit me, and he turned around, like, just laughed at me, that I just kind of went, "Arr!" And I reached over and I grabbed him with both hands right in the shirt. And with rage Hulk strength, and I don't know where it came from because I was made out of pipe cleaners and string, I picked him up and put him against the locker. And I hit him against the locker, and I started screaming into his face. I was like, you gotta leave me alone. You're just a horrible person. And I'm sure I was probably using other curse words I'm not going to use now. But I remember screaming into his face, and I kept like pushing him back against the locker and yelling at him. And while I was doing it, and he's staring at me, all of a sudden, like, the rage goes away. And I'm sitting there just going, oh crap. Like, I have this kid against a locker, and the whole team is staring at me, and I'm sitting there yelling into his face, and I don't know what to do, because I've never done this before. I'm a book nerd. I don't yell at people and pick them up and throw them against lockers. And I sort of, like, slowed down. I was like, bam. Bam. Because I don't, and I'm like, I kind of put him down. I'm like, yeah. So then he goes, do you want to fight? And I go, yeah. Because I didn't know how to answer that question because everyone was staring at me. So I go, yes, I do. Let's fight. That strikes me as a really good idea right now. He goes, all right. After practice, at the baseball diamond, because it was much like our school, where you have like the school and you have the little baseball diamond that was just like right outside. And I was like, yeah, let's do this thing. And then he walked back over to his group, and I walked over to my friends, and they were like, what are you doing? And I go, I have no idea. I'm like, have you ever fought before? I'm like, I've never fought anybody. I'm like, I hit my brother, and I get grounded. They're like, he's going to kill you. I'm like, probably. And then his friends like just kept looking at me like, and I'm like, and so I was like, I don't know how to intimidate people. I'm not good at it, because me doing this is not going to scare you. And so they just kept looking at me. I'm like, whatever. I was like, I'm not scared of him. They're like, really? I'm like, oh, I'm scared of him. But I remember from there, we had to go, and then we had football awards. And we had something like the LGI, except it was like the movie theaters, where the seats are tiered and they go up. And it was like a choir room / LGI. I remember we went in there, and Darren and his friends sat in the front row because they were going to get awards, and I was not. So I was up in the top back row because there's no point in me walking down there because I'm not getting awards for the person that didn't play the most. Yeah, here's your paper. And so I remember sitting in the back, and Darren like kept turning around and giving me the stink eye. He'd like sit there, he's like, he'd stare at me, and like just looking back, and like, I think I'm being tough. Like looking like I don't know what I'm doing. But I kept staring at him, thinking that this is what you're supposed to do. And then my friends gave me advice. Friends who'd also never been in fights. So that's always a good thing to take advice from people about things that they have no idea about. And so I remember them talking like, hey, when you get up there, what you need to do is you have to hit them first. I was like, but I've never hit anybody in the face. Like, I've only hit my brother in the gooey bits because then they don't leave marks and I don't get in trouble as much. They're like, well, you're going to have to hit him first. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do that. Like, if you don't hit him first, you're going to go down. I'm like, I don't want that to happen either. And so they kept trying to talk me up. And I remember after we got dismissed and we went out there, and I'm like, holy crap, this is going to happen. I was like, it's really happening. And he and his group and because the whole football team knew about this time, and we all just took off. Which, as a coach now, I have no idea how this happens. Like, the whole team was like, let's go have a fight. And they just all leave. And the coach was like, okay. And the coach was like, just all stay back inside there. And we just all trooped out. And I remember because it was late season, there was an early snow. So there was like snowy frost on the ground. We went out there. So it was cold. We walked out to the baseball diamond. And I remember we went out there, and the whole football team just made a ring around us. Just like you see in the movies. It happened. They made a ring around us, and they're cheering. And it was just Darren and I, and we're just standing in the middle. And he comes up and faces me, and I'm sitting there facing him, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And they're like, all right, start fighting. And so we're like, all right, we'll start fighting. And so we're standing there trying to figure out who, and so we just kept like walking around each other and doing like the things you've seen on TV, like, and I never hit a person. I'm like, I really don't want to hit. I mean, I want to hit him because he was a jerk, and hitting him would be nice, but I don't want to hit a kid because the last time I hit a kid, I got grounded. And so I was trying to figure out what to do when he punched me right in the nose. Because I remember I kept trying in my head. I kept saying, like, you need to hit him first. You need to hit him first. But I was not able to do it. I couldn't bring up the energy to hit him first. But he had no problem, and he punched me first, right in the nose, and it hurt a lot. And I remember thinking, this hurts a lot. And I went nuts. I came at him, and I screamed, and I attacked him like an animal. I just went, ah! And I just came right at him, and I remember he just went like, ah! And fell backwards. And I just jumped on top of him. And I remember just flailing. I mean, there was not like coordinated punches. It was just this and the hitting, and I remember my arms just hitting hardness. And like him screaming and me screaming and people screaming and me just going like, ah! And just hitting. And I was like, oh, this feels so good. This hitting thing, I like it so much. Especially this particular person. And then while I'm hitting him, he kept yelling, stop, it's over, stop, it's over. I remember thinking, yeah, that's right. And he gets up, he's like, I won. And I went, what? And he goes, I won the fight. And I go, you didn't win the fight. He goes, I won. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I drew first blood. First blood wins. And I went, no, I remember I said this, I'm not done hitting you yet. Because I really liked the hitting of him, and that made me happy, and I wanted to hit him more. So I told him, I was like, I'm not done hitting you yet. He goes, no, I win first blood, and his friends all come running over. And his friends are like, good job, and they high five, and they leave. And I remember just thinking, I want to hit you more. I really like the hitting you part. But he was like, where I come from, that's what happens. I'm like, we come from the same place. We come from the suburbs of Noblesville. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then they left because I've got a feeling I scared them. Because they're like, that boy's crazy. And so they just all left. And my friends came over like, that was scary. And I'm like, I know, right? They're like, no, it was kind of scary. And I'm like, I know, I hit him a lot. I was like, did he really win? They're like, we don't know. We've not been in fights either. We don't know how this thing works. And I remember from there, I had blood. I mean, he hit me, and my nose did bleed. But I hit him a lot more. But I think it was like getting hit with spaghetti. I'm not sure it did much. But there was a lot of hitting in there. I remember walking from there to go get picked up. Because once again, whole line of parents there to pick us up. And we're just all like leaving a fight. And the parents just like, okay. I remember just going out there and coming down to get into the car. And I didn't clean my nose or anything. I was just so excited about this whole fight thing. I remember going and getting into the car and sitting down, my mom looking over, and she was like, what happened? I remember looking over and just going, I got in a fight. She was like, are you okay? I go, I think so. She goes, did you win? I go, I don't know. She goes, how do you not know if you won? I'm like, well, I hit him a lot, and he hit me, but he says he won. And she goes, well, who was it? And I was like, that kid I kept telling you about that kept bullying me that I don't like. And she goes, oh, well, hun, you know fighting's wrong, right? I go, uh-huh. She goes, okay, you want ice cream? And she took me out for ice cream. And I remember I got to go to Dairy Queen and get a Blizzard. And I got to hang out with my mom. And she told me that fighting is wrong, except sometimes you have to do it anyway. And that was the only time I ever got into a fight was that one time. And it was weird because from that point, like I was done with him and he never really confronted me again. It was never a problem. The season was over and it wasn't a big issue. But when I got to high school, I told you before about my epiphany in the change, and the fact that I was a much happier person. My senior year of high school, I was a very happy person overall. And he was not a very happy person.
Touching the door.
I know, there's horrible kids out there. And I remember my senior year, I was the vice president of my senior class, and things were going well, and I was pretty happy overall. And then for whatever reason, he was telling stories about that fight we got into, like 5 years later, or 4 years later, when he was a senior in high school. And he was like, yeah, I remember that one time I beat up Brovicast. And the other kid's like, I remember you getting into a fight, and you guys hitting each other a lot. But it was an interesting moment to go through overall. But that's my much happier story of me getting into a fight, and the only one I ever got into.
Let's hear the sad one.
No, I don't want to hear any sad ones.
I want to hear the sad one.
Yeah.
Make somebody cry.
Well, I'll just go over and kick a kid in the shins, and
No,
that could make a kid cry. That makes it much easier.
No, I don't want to hear a sad one. Make me cry.
See, I don't need sad stuff. I know.
God.
Emotions are overrated.
Trinity.
Besides, I think, are we done like
You
11,
cry?
19?
Oh, I thought
You're
you were
crying.
I yawned.
She's young, it's okay. She's crying. She's worried about me and me getting into fights. She now knows that she's been in the presence of a violent person this entire time.
Yep.
She's like, at any time, he could go crazy with those spaghetti arms and just whip me. It'd be awful. To go back to, since this is my last time to get a chance to hang out with you, unless for some reason you creepily come back as 8th graders, as apparently these children, yeah, hello creepy kids. I appreciate you guys this year. You guys have been an interesting class for me. Overall, we've had tough times and we've had good times, but I've seen a lot of growth in a lot of you, which is the big thing I ask of you. And I know I wrote that for a lot of you in your yearbooks too, because it's what I see. When you guys come to me at the beginning of the year, it's interesting to see you at the end of the year and see how many of you have become the person that I've wanted you to become. Whether it's the fact that you're more responsible and the fact that you do your homework, whether it's the fact that you understood that my B-point system is not to torture you. My B-point system is to make you more responsible and a better person. Because when you leave my room, there's not going to be a teacher who's trying to shape you and trying to use behavior points to figure out that you have to turn in work in order to pass a class. Because when you get to high school, the teachers don't care if you don't pass a class. They just fail you and move on. And so my system is to help you figure that out. And so that's why some of you did a good job with that, and others of you are still learning. But thank you for this year. I enjoyed it. I'll see you at the very end of the day. I get one last time to talk to you during our awards ceremony.